On the 1st of June 1953, the eve of the coronation, London was bursting at the seams with visitors. The crowning of Queen Elizabeth II would truly be the people's coronation. And not just the people of Britain.
That's where I first saw the Gurkhas. I thought it was such a great name. When I had half a slice of bread and cut that in to soldiers, I called them Gurkhas because they were very small.
In just 16 months, Britain and her relationship with the world had changed. It was no longer a dull place, living on faded dreams of past imperial glories. Now it was a modern country, relishing the colourful future promised under the new Queen.
In 1953, there was a step forward. We got this beautiful princess, and she was perhaps, for some of us, the hope for the future and a new generation and a new Britain.
Even heavy rain couldn't dampen the spirits of more than 500,000 people lining the route overnight. Heather Morgan was part of the crowd.
As the crowds built up, the camaraderie built up, excitement built up, and we were all singing community songs and stuff like Roll Out the Barrel and doing the Lambeth Walk and all that sort of thing. I suppose we must have had a couple of hours sleep, fitful sleep, but everything started as soon as dawn broke next day.
We were woken up at 4 o'clock. We were given our little coronation kit, which, would you believe, was a £1/4 bar of chocolate, Cadbury's chocolate, which was gold dust. We had Horlicks tablets, and we had Ovaltine tablets, and we had a bottle of water.
Both choir boys and guests had to be seated before 8 a.m.
We were all dressed up to the nines. And it always felt very funny to be dressed up to the nines at 8 o'clock in the morning, anyway.
Most of the peers donned their coronation robes when they arrived at the Abbey. And Churchill, who was proud of his Lord Warden's uniform, had to be persuaded by tailor Michael Skinner to wear the correct attire.
We had a little bit of a discussion as to whether he would wear the garter hat with the garter mantle. And he said no, he wanted to wear the Lord Warden's hat. So we told him his rights and wrongs, and he said, well, I think that I will, why don't I take both hats and I can decide what to do.
In the end, Churchill took his tailor's advice. By 9 a.m, coronation fever had gripped Britain. Some towns, like Portadown in Northern Ireland, held festivals.
Oh, is that me in the front row? Without my glasses, I'm not seeing too clearly here, but I think it looked like me in the front row. That's amazing. Could I see it again?
In other towns, people acted out the coronation, like here in Scotland, where Christina Todd was named Queen of Blackburn Gala Day.
The Queen had her dress made by Norman Hartnell, even know his name, and I had my dress made by Hardis of Bathgate.
14-year-old Christina experienced life as a queen, if only for a few hours.
The crown was heavy right enough, and you had to watch, because if you nodded your head, it moved. After the crowning ceremony, we paraded round the village with the bands and all the different things. Everybody was out at their gates, waving, and everybody was fair pleased with herself, I think.
Soon, though, most of the nation was rushing off to find a television for the big event. Just before 10:30, the Queen got into her golden coach, and the coronation was finally underway.
And then we heard the cheers increase in volume as the Queen was obviously coming down Whitehall. And then the golden coach arrived, and it was wonderful. I feel quite emotional, you can hear it now. It was every little girl's dream of fairyland or Cinderella. It was just magnificent.
The crowd's cheers carried the coach all the way to the Abbey, where the maids of honour were waiting.
The whole day was like being in a fairy tale, actually. We helped her out, and I remember thinking, I've just never seen anything quite so beautiful.
And then the Queen turned around and said, "Are you ready, girls?"
It's so natural and kind of schoolgirly.
Now, every time I hear Zadok the priest, I start crying. It all comes back to me, that amazing day.
Is Your Majesty willing to take the oath?
I am willing.
The ceremony, full of centuries-old ritual, enthralled the watching millions.
The magic of seeing all those diamonds flashing and the beautiful gowns, it was like the best film we'd ever seen.
But things almost went wrong. As the time when the Queen was to be crowned approached, Lady Glenconnor felt faint.
And I thought, oh my God, I'm not feeling too good. I wriggled my toes and I broke my smelling salts. And then, thank goodness, Blackrod realised, and he put his arm and he pinioned me to the pillar.
I thought something terrible was happening, but you couldn't turn round. You weren't supposed to.
Anyway, I didn't faint, thank goodness. The thought of fainting in front of millions and millions of people and spoiling the whole thing, I just would never forgive myself.
And then came the climax of the ceremony, when the Queen was crowned head of more than 50 lands.
To actually see that was incredible piece of history.
The end of the ceremony was the signal for people across the country to head into the streets.
It was the kids doing fancy dress, and there'd be a judge come from the local council. Someone would turn up to be the VIP of the day. Everyone would be playing games. You just remember the joy of the coronation.
At many parties, children were given special coronation souvenirs. They were reminders of an extraordinary day and a key moment in the story of modern Britain.
I think it was the turning point. I really do. Somehow it was a turning point. Everything seemed to get better.
After the dreariness and terror and everything that we've been through, it was a sort of fitting climax to... I can't describe it really. Anyway, it was the most marvellous day in my life.
Britain, at the end of that remarkable coronation year, was no longer looking backwards. It was transforming itself into the nation we know today.
It's the last in the series. Don't miss Catchphrase at 6:40.